The hidden reason God needs dark chosen ones in his big plan. There's a question that has haunted mystics, prophets, and seekers since the beginning of time. If God is all-powerful, all-loving, and all-good, why does darkness exist? Why suffering? Why evil? And perhaps even more disturbingly, why does it sometimes seem like those who are closest to God carry the deepest scars, walk the hardest paths, and face the most intense internal battles? If you've ever felt this contradiction within your own life, if you've ever looked at your pain and silently asked, "Why me?" you may be closer to the truth than you realize. Because what if I told you some of us were meant to walk through the shadows, not as punishment, not as karma, but as part of a much bigger, hidden plan? A design so sacred, so wild, and so misunderstood that even angels dare not speak of it. This is the path of the dark chosen ones, and this is why God needs us. You see, light is only half the equation. It is expansion, clarity, revelation. It's the part of God that creates order, beauty, harmony. But it is not the whole, because the structure of the universe is not built on light alone. It is built on contrast, on polarity, on the tension between opposites. Without darkness, light has no meaning. Without suffering, healing has no purpose. Without separation, love cannot be recognized. We wouldn't even know what God was unless we had first felt the aching void of being without him. And so, from the very beginning, the divine plan required something radical. Not just beings of light, but beings who could carry the dark and not be destroyed by it.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
Dark chosen ones are not evil. They are not villains. They are not fallen. They are forged, scarred into sacredness, tempered by trials that would break most souls. We are the ones who volunteered before we were born to carry the deepest distortions within us, not because we were weak, but because we were strong enough to transmute them, strong enough to descend into the mess, the madness, the trauma, the rage, and not forget who we are. That's the real test, not to avoid darkness, but to walk into it on purpose and bring back the wisdom that only the fire can reveal. Think about it. Who do people listen to in times of crisis? Who do they turn to when their lives fall apart? It's not the ones who've lived sanitized, perfect lives. It's not the ones who quote scriptures without ever bleeding. It's the ones who have been through it. The ones who've suffered, wept, failed, fallen, and risen anyway. The ones who've tasted hell and didn't let it define them. That's what makes a dark chosen one different. We don't run from the pain. We absorb it. We alchemize it. We become the medicine. But here's the part that most people don't understand. God needs us in his plan, not in spite of our shadows, but because of them. Because there are places in this world and in the collective human soul where light cannot reach. Wounds so ancient, frequencies so distorted, energies so dense and hidden that only someone who has lived in that vibration can enter and survive. The dark chosen ones are like energetic field agents. We are sent into the deepest corners of the matrix not to be consumed by it, but to crack it from the inside. And we carry codes, keys, frequencies that awaken when we are surrounded by the very energies we were born to heal. And that's why your pain has felt so personal. That's why your trauma has been so specific. Because it isn't random. It was chosen by you, and for you because it maps directly to the places in humanity that need healing most. Your addiction? It's a blueprint. Your depression? A map. Your rage, your shame, your grief, it's not weakness. It's access. You've been given the exact coordinates to the parts of the human experience that light workers can't reach. Because you are the bridge. You are the one who carries heaven in one hand and hell in the other. And that duality, that sacred tension, is what makes you powerful beyond belief. But here's the trap. Many dark chosen ones forget. We forget why we came. We get stuck in the pain and start believing it's our identity. We think we're broken, cursed, unworthy of the light. And that's the enemy's greatest weapon, not the darkness itself, but the illusion that it means we're not worthy of the mission. That lie has silenced millions of chosen ones. It's buried their gifts under guilt and fear. But I'm here to tell you, if you've suffered deeply, if you felt like an outsider your whole life, if you've battled demons no one else could see, you are not broken. You are built for something holy. Let that sink in. You're not here to be perfect. You're here to be precise, to embody the part of God that remembers pain and holds it with wisdom. Because God is not just the light at the end of the tunnel. God is also the presence that walks with you through the tunnel. And when you learn to embody that kind of presence for yourself and for others, you become divine in a way that no theology can capture. So I ask you now, not as a challenge, but as a sacred invitation, what if everything you thought disqualified you was actually the evidence that you were chosen? What if your wounds aren't scars but seals of initiation? What if the darkness you carry is not your burden, but your access point to the very throne of God's plan? Because once you see that, truly see it, your entire life rewrites itself. You stop running from your past. You stop fearing your shadow. And you begin to walk with the kind of authority that only the broken can earn. And the kind of authority that doesn't come from avoiding the fire, but from becoming it. The sacred storm. Why God sends His strongest souls into the hardest battles first. Most people think that spiritual calling feels like peace, like warmth, like this gentle unfolding of clarity and purpose. But for those of us who have truly been chosen not by religion, not by society, but by the divine will itself, we know that the call doesn't come as a whisper. It comes as a storm. It comes as loss, betrayal, breakdown, illness, isolation. It tears away everything you thought you were. And just when you think you've hit rock bottom, it pulls the floor out from under you again. Why? Why would a loving God allow that level of pain to touch the people meant to carry His light? The answer is not simple, but it is sacred. Because God doesn't send the weak into the storm. He sends the ones who are already made of it. You see, we weren't chosen for comfort. We were chosen for capacity. And capacity doesn't get built through ease, it gets forged in the fire. When God has a mission that no ordinary soul can fulfill, He sends the warriors wrapped in mortal skin. Not the ones who look strong on the outside, but the ones whose spirit is unbreakable, even when their life looks like it's falling apart. We are the ones who go first, who bleed first, who break open the doors so others can walk through clean. And that's not a punishment, it's a divine trust, a cosmic assignment. When you start seeing your pain not as a curse, but as a contract, everything changes. Think about it. The greatest spiritual teachers, mystics, prophets, and healers in history, none of them had easy lives. They were misunderstood, mocked, exiled. They lost everything. They faced inner darkness that would have shattered most people. And yet, they became conduits of light, not in spite of that darkness, but through it. That's the pattern. That's the blueprint. God sends his strongest souls into the hardest battles first, not because he wants them to suffer, but because he needs someone to map the terrain, to go into the chaos and come back with the codes, to find the wisdom buried under the rubble, to show the others what survival looks like and then what resurrection feels like. But here's what makes it even more powerful. We don't just survive it. We transcend it. We carry the storm and keep our heart open. We lose everything and still choose love. We get betrayed and somehow still choose to forgive, not out of weakness, but out of clarity. Because we've seen what bitterness does to a soul. We've seen what happens when people let their pain define their identity. And we refuse to let our story end in victimhood. That's the real power of the dark chosen ones. Not that we're untouched by chaos, but that we can touch chaos without becoming it. This is why your life has been so intense. It's why your journey hasn't looked like anyone else's. Because you weren't made to follow the path. You were made to burn one into the earth with your footsteps. You were made to go where others refuse to go, to sit with the dying parts of the human collective, to feel what the world tries to numb, and to embody the divine not in theory, but in the trenches of real life. You were made to be the bridge between heaven and hell, not to escape either, but to bring integration where there's only fragmentation. But here's the truth few will tell you. Being chosen doesn't mean you're always going to feel strong. In fact, you'll often feel the opposite. You'll feel like breaking down in moments when everyone else seems to be thriving. You'll feel the weight of emotions that don't even belong to you because you're processing for a bigger field. You'll feel lost, even when you're on the exact track you agreed to walk before you were born. That is the paradox of the dark chosen ones. We are the ones who look like we're falling behind, when in truth, we're ahead of the timeline, clearing the debris for the rest of the world to catch up. So I ask you again, from one stormwalker to another, what if your breakdown is not the end, but the reboot? What if the chaos in your life is not a detour, but divine training? What if everything that's been removed from your path was never meant to stay because your mission is too big for small energy, too sacred for shallow relationships, too urgent for distractions? You were not misled. You were prepared. Every heartbreak, every betrayal, every night spent on the floor, questioning your worth, it was all part of the refining fire. Because your soul isn't here to play nice. It's here to disrupt the matrix, to carry the codes of remembrance, and to wake people up not with words, but with your very presence. That's why your path is different. Because you're not here to fit in. You're here to rebuild reality from the inside out. And now you're starting to remember. The storm didn't come to destroy you. It came to activate you, to shake loose everything you thought was true so only what's eternal could remain. That's what makes you unstoppable. Not perfection, not performance, but the fact that you've already been through hell and you kept going. And now you carry the frequency of heaven in your bones. The divine double agent, how dark chosen ones infiltrate the matrix to awaken the sleeping. We don't come into this world wearing robes and halos. We don't arrive with glowing eyes or angelic choirs announcing our presence. No, we come in quietly, often broken, often unseen. Sometimes we're born into chaos or trauma or complete emotional disconnection. Sometimes we're the black sheep in a family that never understood us, or the ones who feel everything in a world that teaches numbness. And that's not by accident, that's divine strategy. Because the dark chosen ones are not supposed to stand out, they're supposed to blend in. at least at first, we're undercover. We're seeded into the matrix not to escape it, but to infiltrate it from within. We are the divine double agents, and our mission is not to fight the system with violence, it's to awaken it with frequency. Think about it. If you were going to awaken a world that's addicted to illusion, hypnotized by media, enslaved by fear, and programmed to reject anything that smells like truth, then you couldn't just beam down in full power. You'd be rejected instantly. You'd be crucified by the very people you came to help. No, the only way to transform a corrupted system is to enter it, live inside it, feel it, and slowly, quietly begin to transmit a new code. That's what we do. We walk among the asleep, not to judge them, but to mirror back what they've forgotten. We talk like them, we dress like them, we use their language, but underneath, we carry a signal that disrupts everything. That's why your life has felt split. That's why part of you feels like you're playing a role, while another part quietly watches from the background. Because you are. You're living a double life. One part is deeply human, flawed, learning, stumbling through pain and growth. The other part is ancient, strategic, intensely awake, and it's always watching, guiding, adjusting the mission. You've had moments where you felt that part fully take over. Maybe during a crisis, when you suddenly knew exactly what to say or do. Maybe during a conversation where your words felt like they were coming from somewhere beyond you. That's not imagination. That's your deeper self stepping forward. That's the divine agent inside you taking the wheel. And because of that, your path is not linear. You'll be placed in relationships that don't make sense, jobs that feel beneath your soul, environments that feel toxic. And you'll ask, why am I here? Why am I stuck in this place that doesn't reflect who I am? But you're not stuck. You're stationed. You're there to plant seeds, to transmute energies, then to awaken others, not by preaching, but by being. Your very presence shifts timelines. Your energy field is encoded with frequencies that can reboot a room, a family system, or an entire community. But it only works if you stay rooted in the mission. If you remember who you really are beneath the disguise of normalcy. And here's the challenge: the Matrix will try to convince you that your power is fake. It'll flood you with doubt. It'll pull you into distractions, addictions, emotional loops. Not because you're weak, but because you're dangerous. The system fears what it cannot control. And it cannot control someone who has remembered their divine identity. That's why so many dark chosen ones go through identity crises, mental health collapses, spiritual disillusionment. Because the moment you wake up, truly wake up, the system sends everything it can to make you forget again. But if you can hold the line, if you can stand in the fire and not flinch, you become untouchable. So I ask you now, honestly, deeply, are you still pretending to be smaller than you are so you'll be accepted by a system you came to disrupt? Are you still playing by rules that were never designed for you? Or are you ready to drop the disguise and let your frequency speak louder than your fear? Because the world doesn't need more followers. It needs transmitters. It needs frequency holders. It needs souls so clear, so embodied, so awake that even silence becomes a revolution. That is who you are. Not just a survivor. Not just a seeker. But a divine agent of awakening, planted inside the illusion to flip the script from the inside out. The final activation, how dark chosen ones reclaim their throne and rewrite the future of humanity. There comes a moment in the path of every dark chosen one where the disguises stop working, the roles, the masks, the survival strategies, they start to crack. Not because you failed, but because they've served their purpose. You've lived enough illusion. You've tasted enough amnesia. You've played the part so well that even you started to believe it. But now the mission is shifting. The frequency is rising. And you can feel it. Something deep inside you is waking up, breaking the surface, demanding to be seen. This is the final activation. The moment you stop surviving the matrix and start rewriting it. But see, we weren't sent here just to endure. We were sent here to lead. Not with ego, not with dominance, but with energetic precision, with soul vision, with a vibration that speaks louder than any authority on earth. And that leadership begins when you stop waiting for permission. When you stop waiting for the world to understand you before you act. When you stop needing proof that you're chosen because your existence is the proof. You reclaim your throne the moment you stop apologizing for your depth. The moment you stop diluting your truth to make others comfortable. The moment you stop hiding your power behind politeness, spiritual bypassing, or just trying to help. You weren't born to help. You were born to transform. And transformation is not always gentle. It's not always pretty. Sometimes it looks like disruption. Sometimes it sounds like silence. Sometimes it requires walking away from everything that no longer matches the frequency of your soul, even if it means being alone. Especially if it means being alone. Because it's in that space of sacred solitude that the final codes unlock. The ones you've carried since before birth, the ones that activate not when you're celebrated, but when you finally stop betraying yourself. Look around. The world is not dying. It's shedding. Systems are collapsing. Illusions are burning. And underneath, a new blueprint is waiting. But it can't come through unless the architects wake up. That's you. You are the architect. You are the frequency holder. You are the one who knows how to build a future where truth is the currency and the soul is the compass. Not because someone taught you how, but because you remember. Reclamation isn't about becoming something new. It's about returning to what you've always been, before the pain, before the programming, before the world told you to be small. And here's the sacred secret. When one dark chosen one fully activates, fully embodies who they are without fear, without compromise, without distortion, it doesn't just change their life. It creates a ripple in the collective. It opens a portal for others to do the same. Your activation is not personal, it's planetary. That's why it's been so hard. Because you're not just clearing your own pain, you're clearing ancestral lines, collective shadows, and timelines that need to collapse for something higher to rise. You're not just healing, you're recalibrating reality. So now, the choice stands before you. Not from fear, not from desperation, but from knowing. Will you rise? Will you claim your frequency, your vision, your throne? Will you walk the earth as the embodied bridge between light and dark, heaven and humanity? Or will you shrink again, waiting for safety in a world that was never designed to understand you? Because this is it. The final activation is not a moment in the future. It's now. It's in the breath you take after reading this. It's in the decision to stop pretending and start transmitting, and to show up as the raw, radiant, relentless soul that remembers why it came. I'm not here to convince you. I'm here to remind you. You already know what needs to be done. You already know who you really are. You've always known, and now the world is ready to see it. Because when the dark chosen ones rise, the future remembers its light, and nothing false can survive in their presence. You are that presence. Now rise.